Come one, come all to the autonomous zone in Seattle, or as they call it, Chaz, led by a transsexual who rapes her subjects on the first day of autonomy. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, Seattle has its own autonomous zone. What this means in this autonomous zone is within a 6-block radius, police are not allowed, fire and health services are not allowed, and quite frankly, you're not allowed unless you belong there and are a member of this Antifa group. Yep, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. Antifa has taken over 6 blocks of downtown Seattle on Beacon Hill. Now, I did a lot of digging on this last night. There's a lot of different stuff going on, but here's the basic gist. There's a park, consists of a baseball field, looks a couple public buildings, and some apartments have been cordoned off by Antifa and the protesters as an autonomous zone. They are armed. They are guarding it with guns. They are preventing media from going in. Basically what it is, it's a safe haven for the protesters to spend their days and nights getting away with all kinds of drug use and all kinds of horrible things. And like I mentioned, one of their leaders, a transvestite community activist. A lot of people dispute the fact that she's she, I don't know, it's an actual leader. I'm pretty sure she puts herself out there as a woman, so I'll just call her she because that's fair. So anyways, yeah, she committed a sexual assault right off the bat. You know, first day as an autonomous zone, one of the main organizers, went running for the hills. So lots of funny stuff going on there. I've got a little bit of some video of the protesters in Seattle this week. This is basically what they sound like to normal people. Those are the protesters as they ask for their demands. And here they are, nice and... we're chasing them off. Yep, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. Those are sea lions on the dock because that's essentially what the protests in Seattle have broken down to. It's just a whole bunch of unemployed crackpots that are just... I actually have a real thought about this. I've thought long and hard because I keep hearing politicians and pundits refer to these Antifa as these, basement-dwelling punks and, they need to go back to mommy. And there is some truth to that, okay? There is, obviously a youth element to Antifa. But what I think people fail to forget is in 2008, there was actually it was 2007, but 2007, 2008, 2009, major financial crisis. And anybody that had gotten out of college and established themselves prior to that does not understand the desperation that happens to a young person when there's no road ahead. Okay? I sympathize with boomers and people who lost a lot of savings. As a slightly older person now facing financial collapse, I look at the stock market, oh yeah, this really sucks. But I got my feet under me. I've had a little bit of life experience. I can weather some storms. But when you're 21, 22, 23, weathering storms, you're just not prepared for that stuff. So here's what I'm referring to. In 2007, 2008, there's a whole generation of college graduates that graduated for about 5 years, okay, from 2007 to 2008. And you probably stretch it before that. It's probably 10 years. I'd say if you graduated in college or entered the workforce as a, full-fledged working adult anywhere from 5, 6, all the way to 2012, 2013, maybe even 2014, there was not a lot of prospects for you economically. The American dream is creeping off the horizon. It was like 30 years ago, the wealth creation in America, basically every 30 years, we doubled our wealth. So what essentially that means is as a young adult, you start fresh with nothing. You have nothing to your name. You leave your parents' house, you go out, and you make a living. And then by the time you're 30, you essentially have everything your parents have. You have a home, you have a family, you have a car. You have just doubled the wealth of your family because you left the house with nothing, but now you have as much as your family. So that's kind of been the way of the world for, a generation or for about 100 years is that, we double wealth every 30 years, and therefore that's the American dream, is you can go get yourself a piece of that. Well, the American dream is drifting off the horizon. Right now it takes about 75 years for us to do that. So what that means is if somebody moves out of mommy's house at 20, they're not going to have the same amount of wealth as mom and dad until they're like 95. Yeah, or until they're 75. You do take the time that they're there. So, because in the old scenario, you've matched your parents' prosperity by 30. It only took you 10 years to do it. So that's the elusiveness of the American dream, and that's what happened in the financial crash in 2008, the Great Recession, is that American dream went over the horizon. It got harder to get bank loans. Property values all around the country continue to climb. The areas that don't have high property values have low economic, opportunity. So it's a tough situation. Imagine coming out of college and nobody's hiring, everybody's firing. But you just spent 30, 40, 50 grand on an undergraduate degree. I've sat in those shoes. I've been there. I always joke my guidance counselor lied to me, told me to get a degree in political science. There's plenty of opportunities. Yeah, there's plenty of opportunities out the welfare office for someone with a degree in political science. They don't do anything. Who do you know that has a job in poli-sci, right? It's stupid. Anyways, so that generation, I remember being a part of that generation. I'm motivated. I'm a hard worker. But when you realize that the prospects suck. Now, I, as a hardworking, motivated person, never got a job. Nobody was hiring. I've been self-employed or worked on my own or for myself since the day I stepped out of college. And for the first 10 years, that was 100% totally a function of the fact that there were no opportunities. That's really hard for people to wrap their minds around. When I talk to people who had jobs from before, kind of just made it through the recession, whatever, they do not understand that there's an entire generation of desperate adults who came out of high school and college and were supposed to enter the workforce in that time period, 2005, 2006. 2005, nobody knew the financial collapse was coming. So, people kind of probably could still come out of college a little bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. But by the time 2008 rolled around, I graduated December 2007, which was the first declared month of the recession. So by the time 2008 rolled around, they're just, that's when corporations start laying off. That's when small businesses stop growing. There's just stagnation. All of those newly educated adults, newly available workers that were underutilized, at some point start looking around and asking what's going on. And that's where you see, inter-Marxism, right? Inter-Marxism. When economic systems get tough, things like Marxism come on the rise because the idea is, well, somebody's getting it. Why am I not? The people that we're worried about in these that are still protesting and that have become radicalized are the people in the category that I put myself. It's the people who came out of college, came out of high school, saw the fleeting American dream, were squeezed out economically, and then they've run to this Marxist ideology. The best solution to Marxist ideology is success, right? When unemployment is down, when crime rates are down, not a lot of people want to change the system. But when things are bad, people want to change the system. And, I'll be frank, Barack Obama suppressed our economy in order to create, I don't know if in order, but we could probably go there, to create, the financial struggle that has essentially led to this moment. One other thing, too, is our mayors are being completely bought off here. Like, one of the things that bothers me so much about the situation we're in is we lack almost any understanding of how we got here, right? We got here in a slow incremental process. And the way we got here was by electing people that don't have our interests in mind. So in the past, we've mentioned Agenda 21, which was a UN resolution that dealt with governance, dealt with zoning laws, planning laws, and stuff like that. So elections matter. Local elections matter massively. And what we've come to in America is an awakening of the fact that our elected leaders have let us down for a long time, a long period of time, okay? So I'll use the UN 21, Agenda 21 example here. Lots of people get all up in a puff about the New World Order and all that stuff that's going on. It's all real. It's all very real, right? It's in our faces. And let me show you how in our faces it is. Here's the mayor of Chicago. This is Lori Lightfoot. She was elected last year. She's crazy far left, letting her city burn. If you were watching the news the last day, you heard her and her aldermen, which are essentially kind of like city councilmen around the city of Chicago, complaining about the looting and rioting, and she's just like completely, they're cursing at each other. It's quite astonishing. Agenda 21 goes out into all these local districts, local counties, city councils, and they change the things like zoning laws. They change the way things flow within the counties to create a system that's worldwide. This allows for when the New World Order takes over, one world government takes over, they have uniform systems from which to work. They don't have to revamp everything, so that creates kind of a continuity of government scenario. So listen to Lori Lightfoot refer to this, and listen how she refers to it like internally within the departments and how they make these promises. This is the adhering to the Agenda 21 resolution that she's referring to, and then weaponizing the government to enforce it. So hear it out.
With the executive branch, because otherwise it doesn't work. So you got to eliminate that compliance, and you make it a mandate. And then you do training, particularly in the city, I'll call them licensing departments, whether it's zoning, buildings, housing will be impacted by it, planning certainly.
Interesting, in this last COVID shutdown, I just picked up on this, right? Planning, zoning, licensing. Those are the ways that they shut us down, right? Some states went out and actually enforced social distancing on the beach and actually gave tickets. Here in Washington, they didn't really do that. They didn't really have to go out and police people and give people tickets. It's fairly left society, people just kind of complied. It's just, Seattle kind of has this funny way about, we rebel on the really silly stuff like, our police force that keeps us safe, but yet we comply when it comes to things like social distancing and wearing a mask. And part of the reason is, we always joke about Washington being the nanny state, is they've got their fingers in your business. I'm regulated by like 5 or I'll do a whole podcast on this someday. All the entities that regulate my operation, everything from the Health Department, Labor and Industries, Department of Unemployment, Secretary of State, I've got a couple more entities that I have to answer to as well. They all license me. I can't be in business for one single day if I don't have a current license from the Department of Land Surveyors and Engineers. It gives me a license, right? I've got every single one of those things come from one single state government entity and then or county entities. But yet the overlap, the redundancy, it's overbearing. It is overbearing. I mean, we literally have to keep a full-time person on our staff just to deal with the compliance. Because what happens is it makes our job, which should be relatively simple, much more complex to meet their standards. Who's their standards? Agenda 21. These global, universal standards that Lori Lightfoot's talking about. Now, these people are not democratic. They're not will of the people. It's top-down. They're implementing top-down these reforms and resolutions. They're not coming from the bottom up.
And you pick the people to run those agencies and the deputies that are pledging allegiance to the New World Order and good governance. And then I think you have the Inspector General do some spot audits to make sure that with the executive branch.
So you pick the people. So obviously mayors, people in executive branches have the opportunity to appoint people, but the way she's going about it, who've pledged allegiance to this New World Order or good governance. They're so arrogant about this. They think that it's actually like good governance. So here's the scenario. I mean, this is this real world, actual scenario that has happened time and time again. I know a person in my community who's a land baron. He's a total land baron. His family's been in this community for 100 years, 150 years. He owns more property around this county than any other individual. I shouldn't say he owns. He's since passed away, so he technically doesn't own it anymore. Nonetheless, I'm going to use it kind of like his present tense because it's very real. So he owns more property across this county than any other individual, a couple thousand acres. Most of it inherited, but a lot of it's bought. He owns 3 or 4 local businesses in the area that do different service industry type things, but are real high cash flow businesses. So the guy is like uber wealthy, but he's not someone you'd ever think was wealthy. He's missing a front tooth. He usually wears like a little fishing cap. He's got this deep growly voice, very unassuming. I mean, he's in the septic pumping business, right? I mean, this isn't a guy that like is super, he doesn't have a yacht, but he's got a lot of property. Well, in Kitsap County, we used to be able to subdivide down to 2.5 acres, pretty much anything. Any rural piece of property could subdivide down to 2.5 acres for a residential lot. Now, you think about a guy like this who's got thousands of acres divided down to 2.5 acre lots at the minimum, at the max, and he's able to sell those off, right, as residential properties. 2.5 acres is a lot around here. They changed the rules to 5 acre minimums. Now, the market value for 2.5 acres to 5 acres as far as residential is concerned is pretty much the same. You don't really gain a whole lot for that extra 2.5 acres because, you can only build 3,000 square foot house and, you only utilize so much of it. And farming's not a real big thing here. So it's not like people are getting farming off their land in this particular local area where I'm at. And so the government just literally cut his net worth in half. Just arbitrarily voted on a resolution and cut his net worth in half. Now, here's the atrocious thing. They had a town hall meeting for this. It was publicized. People showed up. And Bill and other local landowners that had an interest in this showed up and protested. Every single person who spoke protested that this was bad vote, don't do it. It was a unanimous vote. So our elections matter, and we've neglected our elections. One thing that's great about Donald Trump is he's focused on the election. If you follow his tweets, you realize about every other day, when it's in the news cycle, he'll get on it like a couple times a day. But every couple days, he'll put out a vote type tweet. And what the vote tweet is, it's not just to get out to vote and motivate you to vote tweet, but it is we've got to stop voter fraud. And that's critically important. That is the only thing that can stop us. I honestly, genuinely feel like for those of us that want reform, we have in Donald Trump a champion. We don't have anybody else that's championing for us in Washington, D.C. I don't know about what state you're in, but in my state, I don't have anybody champion for me at the governor level. Our governor, Jay Inslee, is a moron. I don't have anybody championing for me at the legislative level. We have Democrat supermajorities. So they're all about this new world order, new governance models, right? No problem with that. They have no problem telling churchgoers this week they cannot go to church, but they have an autonomous zone in Seattle that they can't seem to get control over. So as you can see, we live in a state that doesn't know what's going on. So the upcoming election in November is critical for us. It's critical for us to get rid of our governor, right? It's critical for us to get rid of these different elected officials. Now, I must say, there is a commonality between myself and the protesters, and here's the commonality. So this is coming from the city council last night in Seattle. Jenny Durkin had a council, or she's the mayor. She had a council meeting, and she's far left. She is far left. She's super progressive. And yesterday, this is what we got. You're about to lose your job. You're about to lose your job. I love the chime. These are protesters in Seattle at the city council. They broke in. They filled this up. I don't know. This place is packed. I'm surprised this place hasn't collapsed. You're about to lose your job. Okay, so they are protesting Jenny Durkin. During the day, they were calling for her to resign. Now they're in here saying you're about to lose your job. Folks, the progressive left will eat itself. If you don't become progressive enough, it will eat you. And they are eating Jenny Durkin right now. Now, I don't know if she's going to resign or cave, or if she's just like, hey, you got to make a show, but I've actually got your back. I'm fighting the fight from within. That's probably what she really thinks. But this upcoming election matters. These progressive candidates, some of them could get voted out for even more progressive candidates. I didn't know we could find somebody farther left than Jenny Durkin in Seattle that could put together a sentence and run for mayor, right? This is, again, we've just gone so far past reality here. But, hey, look, we agree. So let's just get on board with the fact that this upcoming election in November is going to be epic. Now, we keep getting a lot of little tastes of what's going to come up. And the left wants you to believe there's going to be a blue wave. But at the same time, notice how they're also pushing voter suppression. Notice how they're also pushing that we need these mail-in ballots, which we've already discussed on this podcast, are rife with fraud. Just go back and watch the Jerry Nadler video, and you'll realize they're trying to rig the game here. Well, all along the primaries as we've gone, we get these little examples of what we can expect coming up in November. Now, I'm putting on my political science hat here, so you can hear me out. I'm going to give you a little inside baseball on elections. If you're running unopposed, generally voter turnout is very low because there's no competition. So your supporters show up and your haters show up, but everybody in the middle stays home. Okay? So if you're Donald Trump and you're running for office this November, a lot of people don't even think about the primaries. Have you seen Donald Trump out there stumping on the primary trail? Have you seen him doing town hall meetings? No, not really. Because he's the president, he's got a bully pulpit, he's running unopposed, so he's going to sail through the primaries. There's no reason for the Republican Party to waste resources on the Republican primary. There's no reason for them to do mailers. They've got a strong president. He's going to win in the primaries, no problem. All 50 states. He'll be on the ballot. Okay, so there's no real reason to turn out to vote for Donald Trump in the primaries. Now, in the Democratic Party, they are at a fever pitch. I mean, they are just going bananas. They want to beat Donald Trump. They're out there primarying hard. Obviously, since most of the primaries have passed, and we've had COVID. Joe Biden's been MIA. I mean, he's broadcasting from his basement. His podcast that he has is literally just a proof of life podcast, is what it feels like. But there's a lot of motivation on the Democratic side to get out and vote. There's a lot of motivation to show up for their candidate, show up for their party, and to defeat Donald Trump, because we are in the orange man bad era of politics for sure. So, Georgia, last night, had a primary. It was delayed because of the COVID, but nonetheless, it happened. It had some mail-in voting, all kinds of stuff going on in Georgia. But their election was good. It doesn't look like there was too many major issues. There's some really Stacey Abrams, right, who claims to be the governor of Georgia that never was, that lost by 50,000 votes. But she said that she couldn't mail in her ballot because her ballot the envelope came sealed. She tried to steam it open but was unsuccessful, so then she had to go vote in person. So they're trying to push this mail-in voting. So, Georgia results last night. Joe Biden got 83.5% of the Democratic votes. Folks, Joe Biden is going to be their candidate. I mean, they could do some hanky-panky, but as far as the electorate's concerned, Joe Biden's their candidate. He got, listen to this, 547,000 votes, 246 votes. Bernie Sanders came in second with 68,000 votes. So the two of them together comes to 650 or so. Elizabeth Warren, 12,000. Andrew Yang, 6,000. Michael Bennet, 5. Pete Buttigieg, 3. Tulsi Gabbard pulled in 2,700. I always think about the people who vote. So Tulsi Gabbard, Pete Buttigieg, Michael Bennet, Bloomberg, and Yang, those people will vote for Donald Trump. All of those votes will go for Donald Trump. Those are protest votes. Those are votes that are not going to go to Biden. They would have voted for him. He's got name recognition. No reason not to vote for Biden in this primary. Okay? No one else is running. Everyone else has suspended their campaign. Biden should have got those votes. Biden, Sanders, Warren, all acceptable. Yang, come on. Bloomberg, get out of here. Bennett, who's that? Buttigieg? What? Gabbard? She's still running? Okay, she's running a cult, by the way. So 600. So that's the count in Georgia. A highly motivated race where you've got tons of campaigning. Okay, that's what they got. Donald Trump running unopposed. No campaigning. Okay, no reason to have to get out the vote. He could get 500,000, 50,000 votes, and he'd win the primary here in Georgia. Donald Trump, 686,497 votes. He has more votes as an unopposed incumbent president who traditionally has the lowest turnouts than all of the top 4 leading Democratic candidates if we were to combine them. Donald Trump is going to run away with Georgia in November with a landslide. If Donald Trump has not lost support this week amongst his base and amongst moderates, they ain't going anywhere between now and November. I cannot think of anything else that they can throw at this president that would do it. And, the media thinks that Americans have a short memory. I'm sure some do, but not that short. We remember Nancy Pelosi ripping up the State of the Union speech. We remember Kavanaugh and getting falsely accused. We remember these things, okay? We will remember these things at the ballot. We will remember our leaders who have abandoned us. In this time, right, we've got to look at all of our leaders. So I'm going to do a little bit of eating within too. I'm going to jump in with Tucker Carlson because just like the protesters are eating their left, well, we need to eat our right. So this is what Tucker Carlson has to say about the state of affairs right now. Now, keep in mind, we are in crazy land. Right. He's addressing crazy land here. Just prior to this segment, he talked about a woman who wrote an article that said, saying that you're not racist is not enough to not be racist. Saying you're not a racist means you're a racist. So it's like the ultimate Chinese finger trap. The more you pull against being racist, the more racist you are. You're in this never-ending cycle of unable to get out of it. So, or get out of this conundrum of being a racist, right? So again, they're silly. But we've got to push back this. Tucker, he articulates it well. Maybe. There we go. All right, we got it here.
Democrats are thrilled as they watch it. They believe they can win the November election by inciting tribalism and division, and maybe they can. But what then? How do you put the country back together? Republicans have a moral duty to defend us from this, to stand up now, right now, when it counts for America's highest and most important ideals. This, right now, is the crisis that we all sensed was coming. This is why we voted for them. When it really mattered, they promised, they would fight to keep this country from falling apart. Well, now the crisis is here, and they're not even trying. Mitch McConnell is the most powerful Republican in the Congress. He runs the Senate. That's the one chamber Republicans still control. So what did Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader, do today as American society began to unravel? Mitch McConnell did not defend the country, much less defend you. He read talking points that Nancy Pelosi could have written and that benefited only her. Many Republican senators did that today. These people are cowards and they are liars. They pose as your protectors. They would sell you out for the price of lunch and laugh as you were hauled away. At the very least, they could point out the endless lying all around us. There's so much of it. Here's one example. The mayor of Atlanta, Keisha Bottoms, just announced the creation of what she called a recovery fund designed to help businesses destroyed in the, quote, peaceful demonstrations in Atlanta. Wait a second, Keisha Bottoms. If the demonstrations were so peaceful, why the recovery fund? You'd think Republicans could at least point this out. It's kind of amusing, if nothing else. A recovery fund for a peaceful demonstration? But no. You can't criticize Keisha Bottoms anymore. She's a very serious person. She may be Joe Biden's running mate. Respect is due. And so with no pushback, the lying continues. It continues relentlessly in a torrent from everyone in charge, and no one stops it. No one even acknowledges it. After a while, no citizen, no one watching believes anything. The few people who remember what America used to be like start to think maybe they're going crazy, but they're not going crazy. It's not you, it's them. The country really has changed, and very fast.
It is interesting, right? Where it's like this ultimate gaslighting experiment. And the Republicans aren't standing up for us either. I would say the Democrats are standing up for their left, but you just can't abolish police departments overnight. But nonetheless, they would try, okay? We've got to start telling the truth. We've got to be honest. And this November, things matter. Elections matter. They've mattered. They've always mattered. They matter more now than ever. We are at a fourth turning. We could go any direction right now. Our actions matter. Our voices matter. We must hold our leaders accountable. Write a letter to your representative, your senator. Get on that, okay? Do what you can to try to get some action here. And not the kind. Here's the thing. Politicians love to take credit for big things. They love to take credit. They love to have people champion their cause. They love to have people sing their praises. They love it. So anytime that they can solve a solution or get credit for something, they're motivated to do it. They have an intrinsic motivation. Their personality types, all the way down to just the nature of the job they do. They want, right, that recognition. So what they need is validation from decent people. I have a hard time believing that in Minneapolis that they really want to get rid of their police department. Now, they've elected some idiots. They've elected some ideologues. They've elected some New World Order acolytes. And so now they've openly looking at abolishing the police department. And there's protesters in the street, 20,000, 30,000 of them. But there's 400,000 people in Minneapolis. So you got 20,000 people holding 400,000 people hostage. Now, I have no idea how many of the 400,000 people support the protests and riots, but I'll tell you this. When a small business goes out of business, gets looted, those are jobs. So you might have one owner, but you might have 10, 15 employees just for a small mop pop, a Dollar Tree. It supports 10, 15 families. So that one store that was looted, there might be 10 or 15 families that are facing ultimate financial ruin. The AutoZone, the Target. The Target employs 1,000 people. Up and down the supply chain, everything from truck drivers to the local dairymen that produce milk that almost exclusively go to those Walmarts in there. I mean, there's massive impact with these looting and this looting and rioting, and so it's hard for me to believe that that's why the mayor of Minneapolis won't commit to defunding and abolishing the police, is because it's not reasonable, right? It's not reasonable for the normal people, but yet you've got this minority protesters that make themselves known. And you know what? Sometimes the minority has to protest. They have to have their voices heard. That's how they do it. But, and it's right in this country. Protesting is our God-given right. However, looking at this here, what they're asking for is a bad ask. So good people need to step up and ask for good things in mass. We need to ask for more law enforcement, ask for our police to be more funded, ask for our police to maintain law and order, ask for our police that we pay to have a monopoly on force, to use that force on our behalf, right, to prevent the looting and the rioting and the raping and pillaging of our cities and the autonomous zones. Seattle gave up their East Police Precinct. They boarded it up. They took their stuff out of there and they gave it over to the protesters and rioters. And there's a big spray painted sign on the door that says this is now a community zone. It's not a community, nothing. It doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the American taxpayer. And I guarantee you Antifa folks pay almost nothing. You think sales tax is a burden. Good gravy. Try to own a business. So I'm going to pivot a little bit here. I want to talk about Bill Barr. He's addressing specifically the court stoppage in the Flynn case. You've got this judge who's stepping in to try to be a prosecutor, which is really unheard of. So I'm just going to jump right over to this. We've got the protesters, the ridiculousness, and as you know, if you've been listening to me, I'm always calling for justice. And this is a pretty good update on the justice. I'm a little disappointed, but it is what it is. The system has got to grind through this.
You mentioned the Flynn case. You're in the process of trying to dismiss that charge, the charges, yet the Judge Sullivan.
Okay, so the Flynn case, if you remember, General Flynn was targeted by the Obama administration. There was unmasking. There was illegal wiretapping on him, on other Trump cabinet members, but this one, or transition team members. General Flynn was the first one we knew about, and the FBI got him to admit to lying to the FBI. But what really happened, so let me break this down really simple. The FBI lied to General Flynn about what he had said to the Russian ambassador on a phone call while Flynn was in the Dominican Republic. Flynn was on vacation, had bad cell phone connections. They had 5 phone calls within about 1 minute or 2 minutes as they were calling back and forth trying to get a good connection. Flynn knew his call was being recorded. When the FBI agents came over to investigate him and they said, what'd you talk about? Or did you talk about XYZ? He goes, well, I don't know. I don't remember. But you guys have a tape of the recording of the call. He just assumed they did, right? He's overseas talking to a foreign ambassador. Of course it's being hoovered up by the spy systems. He's an intelligence officer. He knows that's going on. So he goes, well, you guys have a transcript. Well, they never produced the transcript in the prosecution of him, but they did tell him in an executive summary what it was that he had said. They said that he talked about sanctions on this phone call. Well, because they said, you talked about sanctions, and he said, well, I didn't talk about sanctions, bingo. Flynn lied to the FBI, then he turned around and lied to Vice President Pence when asked about it, saying, no, I didn't talk about sanctions, and the FBI is saying, yes, you did. You talked about sanctions. So throughout the entire trial, Flynn gets to the point where he goes, hey, can you show me the transcript of the call? No, we can't show you the transcript of the call. It's classified. They never unclassified it. So Flynn, being an honorable man, and there was threat for prosecution for his son, eventually got trapped into where he's like, well, I have to plead guilty to lying to the FBI because they say I talked about sanctions, but I don't remember that. I think I'm telling the truth, but apparently I lied. So he cut a deal and pled guilty. Well, turns out he wasn't guilty, and figure a few things out, put a few dots together, a couple public disclosures, and suddenly he's going, no. I cry foul on the FBI. The FBI is the one lying, not me. But this is after he'd already entered a guilty plea. Judge Sullivan is a compromised judge. John Here to Help on Twitter has a long bit about Judge Sullivan, his personal past with domestic abuse and rape, and his son who has raped and maimed an underage girl. Horrible stuff. Taken to the hospital. They called the fire department instead of 911 because they knew the 911 calls would be recorded. But guess what? The fire department calls are recorded too. This judge is corrupt. Corrupt, dirty, dirty man. He was involved with Elijah Cummings, who was also corrupt. These two, Elijah Cummings and this judge, pillaged their alma mater in Baltimore for money. They would get grants and then they would take kickbacks from those grants. They would take millions of dollars. He's got stolen art in his home. Okay, Judge Sullivan has been researched, and everybody who cares to know knows how corrupt this individual is, but our system is feckless to take care of him. And this is part of my problem. This clip that I'm playing from Bill Barr, I might stop it again. I've got some issues coming up with the timing of things, and especially the fact that they don't seem to address the elephants that are in these rooms. Why are we letting a corrupt judge hijack the system here? We know he's corrupt in his personal life. We know his family's corrupt. We know his business dealings are corrupt. But yet, here we are. And we wonder why these things are going on. So for all this time, we've been saying this judge is corrupt, this judge is corrupt, this judge is corrupt. And then when it comes to the hour to do the right thing and just simply dismiss the case. Oh, so General Flynn, right? The FBI fights General Flynn. Well, eventually, Richard Grinnell gets into to be the director of national intelligence, the acting director of national intelligence, and guess what he declassified? The phone call transcript that shows that he never talked about sanctions. So now we've caught the FBI lying about what they said General Flynn do, and they knew all along he wasn't lying. We also have the case notes of the officers who interviewed him that said, "What are we trying to do? Set up Mr. Flynn?" Okay, I mean, this is egregious. We have all this now; it's public, but this judge wants to be the prosecutor. So we'll go back to Barr.
And continues on and has now a shadow prosecutor making a case that it should continue.
The argument is that it's always been understood that decisions whether to pursue an individual through the prosecution process or holding them criminally accountable is vested in the executive branch and not the courts. And he is essentially, in our view, trying to set himself up as an alternative prosecutor.
And so have you seen anything like this before?
I'm not aware of anything like this before, and I think that's why this is not being argued at the appellate stage in the District of Columbia.
I know you can't get into specifics, but the DOJ Inspector General identified this top FBI lawyer who fabricated evidence in order to justify this warrant against Carter Page to spy on him. We know that's a crime, yet there haven't been any charges yet. Is that person still working at the FBI?
No.
And are there charges?
Well, we can't discuss, future charges, but I have to say that I do find it a little irritating, the propensity in the American public on all sides of the political spectrum, when they see something they think could be a criminal violation, saying, why hasn't this person been indicted yet? Why hasn't this person indicted? Why? And, there's the old saying that the wheels of justice grind slow, and they do grind slow because we have due process and we follow the process. But people should not draw from the fact that no action has been taken yet, that means that people are going to get away with wrongdoing.
What is he talking about? It's only been 3 years, Bill Barr. I mean, it's not like we have, we've got some new information in the public, but guess what? We connected these dots a long time ago. This is what's so frustrating about the American justice system, especially at the federal level. It uses and abuses you, and it runs out the clock. It uses and abuses you, and it runs out the clock. General Flynn has been a political prisoner in our country for 3 years. Political prisoner. Falsely prosecuted and pursued by our Department of Justice that was being run by guess who? Bill Barr. Bill Barr's been there for 2 years. Or for over a year and a half since the midterms. Okay? Jeff Sessions going to do it. The American public on both sides gets frustrated because of the timing. You know what we get frustrated is because you run out the clock. You produce a report that labels a bunch of crimes like Horowitz that we wait years to get, by the way, and then nothing gets done about it. Nothing seems to get done about it. Now, Bill Barr, dear Mr. Bill Barr, I understand we have due process. And look, I respect it maybe not as much as you, but a lot. I respect it plenty. And I want to see these people get their time to defend themselves, and I want to see justice done. But you're running out the clock. A president only has 4 terms. You've said it yourself. This coup plot hamstrung the president for the first 2 years of his administration. He lost a majority in the House purely because of the Russia probe. You can't make any argument that he lost the House of Representatives in 2018 midterms other than to say that Robert Mueller interfered with the election in the same way that they had theoretically accused the Russians of interfering. Fake news, folks. Our government kicked out fake news, fake leaks, fake investigations for years. And Bill Barr has the audacity to sit here and say, oh, people need to be patient. You've already run out the statute of limitations on Hillary Clinton. You cannot go back and prosecute Hillary Clinton for leaking classified information because there's a 3-year statute of limitations on that. 3 years. It's over. It's gone. So now, yeah, we can put her under oath and we can depose her and we can find all these things out. And it might ruin her future political career because I think she is still trying to have one. It might ruin her credibility with people who don't love her already and, are her adamant base. You can't prosecute her. You cannot go after some people for these crimes once you run out the statute of limitations. So this whole idea, they see these crimes and then we don't do anything about it. This is the reform we're calling for. We live in the world of the internet. Internet researchers can get more done and dig up more dirt. And the truth of the matter is, when you follow up on a lot of these court cases the last handful of years, all the evidence they produce was produced by online researchers. There's guys like, at Undercover Huber, Technofog, some of the greatest accounts on Twitter. All they do is research these documents, and then you end up seeing them in court cases. And these guys they're Twitter researchers. They're digital soldiers, so to speak. What's going on, Bill? I hope you're wrapping up this whole thing. I mean, the time it has taken you to do this, the amount of resources and money that is available to do this, the way you've diversified the investigations, I'm all for it. But let's get something. We got riots in the street. You've got fake news going all over the place. We've got a virus putting us on lockdown. Yesterday, I was so disgusted. We did the coronavirus episode where I went through the fake coronavirus issues. Now we're starting to see, you can go through any news channel, a second wave of corona, a second wave of COVID-19, a second wave of the Wuhan flu is coming. Kitsap County, where I'm at, we just had 6 new cases. Now, we just moved into our new phase where we didn't have any cases for 2 weeks, and we moved into a new phase. Now we got 6 new phases. And when you get on some of the community pages that I'm on, they're like, oh, well, these aren't from the protesters. Well, guys, the incubation period is 2 to 5 days, 2 weeks, absolutely max. We're right in that range of the protesters. The protesters are spreading COVID. End of story. So when you start seeing the second wave stuff going on, don't let them blame it on churchgoers. Don't let them blame it on people going to the grocery store. Blame it on the protesters. It's pretty simple. I bet if you go through the people who are going to be having these cases, we're going to now be leaving the nursing homes and we're now going to be into the general populace. We're doing exactly what Wuhan did when they had their 10,000 family celebration in Wuhan, and then 2 weeks later, they had to lock down the whole city because that's how it spread like wildfire, was when they had this huge mass community event. And that's what I fear with the protests. And unfortunately, we have politicians in our government all over the place that won't use the therapeutics like hydroxychloroquine with the Z-Pak or vitamin D and all the different things that we can do to prevent and limit the impacts of this disease. They're just not talking about them. There's like a media blackout on all the good stuff. We're waiting for a vaccine. Drives me nuts. Speaking of vaccines and speaking of the Wuhan virus, check this out. We'll wrap up on this today. Headline, this is from the Department of Justice, the United States Department of Justice. Now, I want to point some things out, and this goes back to the Bill Barr thing, and this is part of my issue. Remember in this case the dates. Headline, this is the release from for immediate release from the Department of Justice. Harvard University professor indicted on false statement charges. The former chair of Harvard University's chemistry and chemical biology department was indicted today on charges of making false statements to federal authorities regarding his participation in China's 1,000 Talents program. So China's 1,000 Talents program, basically it's the Communist Party's way of coming over here and stealing all of our best minds, academic, engineering, biosphere, everything. Okay, the 1,000 Talents, they're hoovering up our good professors and labs, or good professors and information. According to the charging documents, since 2008, 12 years ago, since 12 years ago, Dr. Lieber has served as the principal investigator of the Lieber Research Group at Harvard University, specializing in the area of nanoscience. Nanoscience, oh man, we are just entering a time warp zone here, futuristic. Lieber's research at the Lieber Research Group has been funded by more than $15 million in research grants from the National Institute of Health. That's King Fauci's department. Remember the names, remember the department. So he's been getting this money from Dr. Fauci, from the National Institute of Health, is giving $15 million in research grants to Lieber, who's got this university professor, and the Department of Defense is given this money. So these are our tax dollars. Among other things, these grants required the disclosure of all sources of research and support, potential financial conflicts of interest, and foreign collaboration. See, when they write the policies, a lot of times they get it right. They just don't seem to follow up. According to the charging doc, it is alleged that unbeknownst to Harvard University, that's bull crap right there, unbeknownst. Yeah, their whole freaking faculty is getting rolled up in the 1,000 Talents program investigations. And all we got is a press release. Where's this on the mainstream news? It is alleged that unbeknownst to Harvard University, I cry foul there. Beginning in 2011, Lieber became a strategic scientist at Wuhan University of Technology in China. Among other things, he later became a contractual participant in China's 1,000 Talents program from at least 2012 to 2013. So 4 years after he joins, he becomes very official 2012 through 2015. We're 2020. They're charging him now. So 5 years ago was when, between that time period, 2012 to 2015, China's 1,000 Talents plan is one of the most prominent Chinese talent recruitment plans, designed to attract, recruit, and cultivate high-level scientific talent in furtherance of China's scientific development, economic prosperity, and national security. They're stealing it from us, folks. Stealing it from us. Our government is paying for this research $15 million, and then they're stealing it. We pay for it. We develop it. They steal it, and then release it on the world. According to the court documents, these talent recruitment plans seek to lure individuals for stealing proprietary information. Under the terms of Lieber's 3-year 1,000 Talents contract, Wu Ti paid Lieber a salary of $50,000 US per month. $50,000 a month for this Harvard professor. And living expenses up to 1 million Chinese yuan, approximately 158,000 USD at the time, and awarded him more than $1.5 million to establish a research lab at WUT. In return, Lieber was obligated to work for WUT not less than 9 months a year. So he's moonlighting at Harvard? He's not even a Harvard professor full-time now at this point. He's moonlighting at Harvard, and he works for the Chinese. By declaring international cooperation projects, cultivating young teachers and PhD students, organizing international conferences, applying for patents, and publishing articles in the name of WT. How are we going to have any patriots in the sciences? If you're in these universities that are infiltrated by the Chinese and their 1,000 Talents program, and you're our experts, our future experts, and now you're simpatico with the Chinese Communist Party, we got a problem. It is alleged that in 2018 and 2019, Lieber lied to federal authorities. So in 2008, 2 years ago, and last year, he was asked about this directly. He lied to federal authorities about his involvement in the 1,000 Talents plan and his affiliation in WT. Or on or about April 24th, 2018, during an interview with federal investigators, it is alleged that Lieber falsely stated that he was never asked to participate in the 1,000 Talents program. He's outright lying. 2008 and 2009, outright lies in his participation. He received $50,000 a month. $50,000 a month. Oh, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know. I got so much money rolling around. I don't know where that $50,000 a month's coming. It is that he wasn't sure how China categorized him. Employee is how they categorize you. 9 months out of the year, they categorize you as an employee. In November 2018, NIH inquired of Harvard about whether Lieber had failed to disclose his then suspected relationship with WT and China's 1,000 Talents program. Lieber allegedly caused Harvard to falsely tell NIH that Lieber, who had no formal association with WUT after 2012. That WT continued to falsely exaggerate his involvement in the WUT in subsequent years, and that Lieber is not and has never been a participant in China's 1,000 Talents program. So not only did he lie twice, years ago. But then he also got Harvard to lie about it. Now, if Harvard is reporting back to WUT, do you think, I'm curious how deep this lie goes. Did he just send him an email, go, no, I haven't worked with him since 2012, no big deal, and then Harvard passed it on? Or is Harvard really involved in this and they've known he's supposedly a faculty member that only works 3 months a year, and they're paying him too. I'm sure he's making $400, like Elizabeth Warren making $400,000 a year working at Harvard. So I'm sure he's rolling in it. And then he's on the China teat at $50,000 a month. The charge of making false statements provides for a sentence of up to 5 years in prison, 3 years of supervised release, and a fine of $250,000. Sentences are imposed by federal district judge court based on U.S. sentencing guidelines and other statutory factors. This is the tragedy here. This man, along with other Harvard professionals, got paid to kill Americans. They got paid. Creating viruses, researching viruses, not checking their SICs, not knowing who's spying on them. And they've just been doing this since 2008. They've just been lying to our faces. $50,000 a month. Where does that money go? What kind of cars do these people drive? Are university professors so elite that they can just have that much money slushing around and nobody notices? I mean, how do you be a university... Guys, we've lost our minds. Bill Barr, it takes time. Well, guess what? You obviously sent agents to go digging in here on this. I don't know how hard this was to figure out. I mean, I guess maybe this case is crazy complicated, but it looks to me like what Alex Jones has been saying for about 15 years now is that the Chi-Coms are trying to take over America. That's what I think's going on. I think we have a very simple problem with very dumb politicians. All right. That about wraps it up for today, guys. Harvard professor, he did get indicted. Thank goodness he did get indicted. He's one of quite a few. It is happening bit by bit. Hopefully we get to the bottom of the Wuhan virus, and China's got to pay. China has got to pay. Hey, if you like the podcast, please like it. Please share it with others. Please rank it on the iTunes and the other apps, the ranking system. Say nice things, please. Don't give me any low rankings. It's early in the morning. I do this podcast in one take. It's early in the morning. Sometimes I don't say all my words right. I apologize. Maybe someday I can, practice my articulation or something. All right. Talk to you guys later.